Thank you very much. You can see the topic, CBDC, blockchain technology. I guess most of you want to listen to these topics, right? But unfortunately, this topic will be taught by my colleagues, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'll try to introduce our FinTech program in Hong Kong U. Now, you can see that there's one big problem faced by the industry, not even in Hong Kong, but worldwide, is the shortage of FinTech talents all over the world, okay? Now, so, Hong Kong U actually try to address this issue, and we have been working very hard to address this problem. So you can see that my topic right now is focus on the FinTech talent development blueprint. So I want you to see, how Hong Kong U try to respond to this shortage. Okay. Now, in fact, our target is actually all people. Okay, from senior high students to undergraduate student to postgraduate student to even professional, whether they are in finance or not. Okay. Now, so I want to share with you what we have been doing in Hong Kong U in order to nurture more FinTech professionals so that we can help Hong Kong or even, mainland China or other regions. Okay. Now, for undergraduates, we actually have done a lot. Probably you heard about that. We have a FinTech BASC program, undergraduate program that have been like 3 years already. And then we introduced the financial computing focus in our BHCS for computer science program. So in fact, quite a number of students want to focus more on FinTech computing. And on the other hand, for other students who are not in computer science or not in the FinTech program, in the coming semester, we are trying to offer a new common core course. In fact, if you look at the title, you see that it's a rather hit topic and sexy. We are going to teach students about like financial inclusion, emerging markets, about FinTech, and also the social values. And a related program we are going to offer in the coming year, next year, is the BH in data science and engineering. Okay, of course, subject to the final approval. So basically, we have done a lot for the to train the undergraduate student to attract them to this FinTech industry. Now, on the other hand, if you look at our postgraduate program, we also have some new development. For example, we have a new MSc program in FinTech and data analytics. And in our computer science master program, we already have a financial computing stream already. Now, I don't know whether you notice it or not. Okay, now even you are professional in the industry, we start to recruit research students, full-time or part-time, if they're interested in FinTech and try to work more on FinTech research problem. For example, you know that there's some very hit topics going on in the FinTech area. For example, how you calculate the ESG index, how you do the financial inclusion using blockchain and so on and so forth. Okay, or the central bank digital currency. Basically, our students are actually work on the research problems on these related areas. Now, then for the professionals, I know that some of the professionals in the finance or related areas, they also want to know more about FinTech, right? So basically, I don't know whether you have attended our seminar series. We actually will have a seminar series going on. I think the first one we talked about digital currency before, and then we actually have a lot of audience. And depending on the COVID-19 situation, in fact, we are planning to invite the worldwide leaders in FinTech to come over to Hong Kong to give a keynote speech. Okay, and for the industry, in fact, we have a plan also coming. Okay, so we are going to have breakfast, lunch talks to invite individual companies, those professionals to come to share with us, what to do in FinTech. Okay, now On top of this, we also want to nurture the student in their early stage. So for example, we actually aim at the senior high student because we want them to understand FinTech at their early stage so that when they try to pick a program to join for the degree, they might also consider FinTech. Okay, now, so what we are going to do is we are going to have workshops. Actually, we are organizing it with our student organizations in Hong Kong U to provide some workshops to the senior high students. And the first topic, actually, we are planning for it is on digital asset. You know, this is also a very hit topic as well. And of course, afterwards, we are going to organize some of the competitions so that, you know, a high school student can understand more about FinTech. All right. Now, then on top of this, we understand that we need to work with the industry a lot, okay, because, you know, that's the core part in Hong Kong, right, the financial center. And actually, we talked to the industry, Hong Kong MA, Cyberport, S3, and we have signed a lot of, you know, agreement, MOU, whatever, to provide internship to the student. But more importantly, I think internship is one thing, but what we want to do is we want to talk to the industry so that they can give us real projects in FinTech so that we can ask our master student, PhD student, or even undergraduate student to work on these real R&D projects, okay? And then at the same time, we will try to see whether any of them can have a very good idea so that we can help them to do some startups, all right? So in order to make the you know, community growing, okay? So this is basically the whole picture of our roadmap for how to nurture FinTech talent in Hong Kong, okay? But on the other hand, we also have another thing. We understand that we do not just want to benefit local students or local people here. What we want to do is actually we are going to benefit everybody, including those in overseas and mainland. I don't know whether you have attended our moot course. Actually, the moot course in FinTech, there are 3 courses, and then we combine them into the first Asian FinTech certificates. Okay, so this was very popular already. Okay, and then what we are going to do is we will try to offer 3 more free FinTech moot courses in the coming year. So if you're really interested in it, so you may pay attention to it. All right, so I will stop here and let you listen to the real exciting topic on CBDC and blockchain. Okay, so I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Alan Au. I'm also from the CS department. So it is an exciting time. It's my honor to be here to give a brief sharing on our view on central bank digital currency, CBDC for short. So this is only the first part of the sharing, and then the brief will be taught by Dr. John Yun, who will talk about the security, which is really a very important, crucial factor for the success of CBDC. But before that, to set the stage for the discussion, I guess I better talk about why are we interested in CBDC, and when we talk about CBDC, what really is CBDC? What types of CBDC are there? And also the technology readiness of CBDC. So why CBDC? It dates back to like more than 10 years ago. I guess in the year 2008, I guess you still remember the global financial crisis. And it's in that year, the concept of Bitcoin was proposed. And in the next year, it is the birth of Bitcoin, the first really popular cryptocurrency in the world. And since then, a number of cryptocurrencies have been proposed, like Ethereum, Monero, Zcash, or Litecoin, whatever. And nowadays, I guess we have over 10,000 of cryptocurrencies, and some of which are purely token-based without anything to back up. And also nowadays, people recognize maybe the price is too volatile. So maybe we can use this technology and use it to represent something of real value, like USDT or USDC. They are backed by fiat currency like US dollar. Undoubtedly, we witnessed the success of kind of success of cryptocurrencies. And we see a lot of new method, new ways of doing payment. And nowadays, if I need to send money to my wife in Australia, well, I can choose just to send cryptocurrency rather than to go to the bank and do the transfer. And also, along with the success of this blockchain and cryptocurrencies, we also see a number of new applications in decentralized finance. Well, sounds really exciting, really good, but using cryptocurrencies issued by private sectors are really risky. Last week I checked, the price of Bitcoin is over 60,000 US dollar. If you think about maybe a year ago, it's like half of them. So the price is really volatile, and somehow we don't know if it is really a good way to do payment. So why we still want to have this cryptocurrency? Well, it enjoy a number of desirable features, but they are fundamentally, as someone called, is fundamentally flawed. We shouldn't rely on private company to issue currency as our main form of payment. And if the central bank issue digital currency, then the following number of advantage could be observed immediately. Well, of course, it's a direct response to the challenge posed by cryptocurrencies. It also enjoy a number of advantage of these cryptocurrencies, like instant payment, faster settlement, and also in principle, it can lower the transaction cost. And also this one, I like it most, is the cost-effective cross-border payment. And then there could also be other potential benefits like financial inclusion. Maybe in Hong Kong, it is not that serious as an issue, but in some of the developing countries, not everybody has a bank account. So if they need to buy things online, if they need to make online purchase, then it's not possible for them. So if somehow we have digital currency issued by central bank, then they can also enjoy this like a peer-to-peer payment or online shopping. And if they do that, then that could also improve their credit history, and maybe they can access to more financial services. And finally, I use the term advanced conditional payment here, and that's like the analog of smart contract and the blockchain world. So with when the currency is digitalized, then it is possible to specify conditions under which the payment is made. I can specify things like, okay, I will give you the money periodically, something like that can be made into a program. So that would allow new applications and foster innovation, support new business models. Now, I would like to go to talk about the types of CBDCs that people is talking about, and also the implication on the requirement of the technology. I believe at the beginning, like most of the central banks are looking into wholesale CBDC that is only used by financial institutions for settlement. That could reduce the settlement cost. And somehow I believe this is technologically more ready because the transaction rate requirement is not that high. And then if wholesale CBDC becomes feasible, then we can look at cross-border payment. I know HKMA is also very interested in cross-border payment and set up this pilot project with Thailand, and nowadays with also with People's Bank of China to see if we can use CBDC to improve the efficiency in cross-border payment. And finally, if we really wish to enjoy one of the advantage like financial inclusion or to foster innovation, to allow business to develop new business model, then maybe eventually we would like to look into retail CBDC, but the impact could be really huge. Imagine in one day, we can have account to hold CBDC, so we don't need to use mobile payment or mobile wallet like Alipay anymore. We can pay directly, so the impact could be really huge. On the other hand, there are a number of risks if we really open up this retail for general user. And there's a number of design choice we need to make. Like, do we really allow the citizens to hold this CBDC, have an account in the central bank directly? Or we could consider things like a two-tier model. The central bank only issue CBDC, wholesale CBDC to the banks, and then the banks would issue this e-money to the individual users. Then the disruption would be milder, and maybe that would be the way to go to move forward. But either way, if we wish to deploy CBDC, something cannot be neglected as the security. That's the most important part. Otherwise, if people can make up money out of nothing, then the system collapses. And equally important would be privacy. While people usually relate Bitcoin or those cryptocurrencies to illegal activities because it is hard to trace, I believe most of the central banks do not want to offer full privacy to their CBDC. So what will happen is, well, everything is recorded electronically, and people may have fear that, okay, all my transaction history will be known by these central bank, which might be another issue that needs to be tackled. And I would say there should be a balance between privacy and the so-called accountability. So these are the types of CBDC. And what are the potential impacts of these CBDCs if they are really deployed in practice? Well, of course, if we have a retail CBDC, and then we can finally move to the cashless society, we might replace cash, and it will facilitate P2P payment and also compete with cryptocurrency. Maybe eventually people will not use cryptocurrency anymore because now there's no need for those cryptocurrencies. And if we have wholesale CBDC, then we could have a better functioning of this payment system. It will improve, I would say, make it more cost effective. While I'm not saying that the current infrastructure is not good, it's not that they're kind of expensive. They are expensive. So maybe with CBDC wholesale, it could lower the transaction costs between or settlement costs all the time. And finally, another advantage of this, if we have CBDC wholesale, then it could facilitate international payment. The current cross-border transactions are really costly and time-consuming. And I believe for some of this cross-border international transfer, it may actually go through like 3, 4, or 5 intermediate banks. So it's really time-consuming. So with CBDC, perhaps it is possible to simplify the process and eliminate the layers of these banks, intermediate banks, and enable much faster cross-border transactions. Okay, so how would we implement this central bank digital currency? Well, in a sense, CBDC does not equal to blockchain, even though nowadays we are discussing CBDC, many people think, okay, maybe we can use blockchain or distributed ledger technology to implement CBDC. I'm not sure. I would say it's not necessarily the case. If we follow things like a two-tier structure, the central bank issue CBDC to the banks or financial institutions, and the financial institutions issue e-money to the typical user. It is also possible that in the second layer is using the existing technology like mobile payment, mobile wallet. But of course, with blockchain, there are some additional advantages, like it's reduced the trust. So we feel more comfortable with the system and make the system more accountable. And for blockchain, unfortunately, today's sharing would be a short one, so I am not able to go very deep into this topic. All I can say at this point is that we can treat blockchain as a distributed database or distributed ledger, with one difference is that the throughput is not that high. So in case we really wish to issue CBDC at the retail level, most likely it will not be a single layer system because of the issues in the efficiency of existing blockchain. And then equally important is about the privacy issue. When people like to talk about blockchain as a secure database, the difference is that everything on blockchain can be seen by all the nodes in the network. So we need additional privacy preserving technology to ensure that the data stored on the blockchain is only visible to the authorized party on a need-to-know basis. And then if we have to consider CBDC, another important issue is, okay, nowadays I have a mobile phone. I guess most of us here got a mobile phone, so we can use it easily. But in some part of the world, not everyone have access to the internet. So do we wish to support this offline transactions is another issue that we need to think about. So there are three major technological concerns. One I have mentioned is performance and scalability, because for retail CBDC, we need to support a high transaction throughput. So it's kind of challenging. So we need to get around this based on the architecture design. And then another issue is security. We really need to make sure the system is secure, and not just at present, but also allow the system to continuously evolve to withstand against the advanced future attack as well. And finally, the last issue that I believe is equally important is privacy. For cash, we are used to using cash. We know people cannot trace me if I use cash, but if we use digital payment, in whatever format, the transaction history will be there on the system. So how can we ensure the privacy is still protected? And well, if we design a system with perfect privacy, that's also problematic. We don't want people to be able to abuse the system. So how to make a balance between this privacy while still maintaining some sort of accountability, and also allow us to still implement those AML policy is another challenge that we need to think about. So I guess that's my short summary here. Do we really go for CBDC, or well, should we try to improve existing payment systems? Or that's what we foresee, is that maybe in the near future, these two will coexist for a long time, and CBDC may play a complementary role. Well, eventually, might be in one day, CBDC will become the mainstream payment. But at this point, we just have to wait and see. And if indeed CBDC got deployed, we see a number of benefits already, like promote the development of other applications, foster new innovation, new applications from the company accepting CBDC. And also it can help financial inclusion. I think this is very important. And then if CBDC is deployed, I guess because of the competition, maybe it can also make the banks improve and also lower the transaction cost. And finally, cross-border payment could be facilitated. And then I would like to leave the time for my colleague, Dr. John Yun, to talk about these security and privacy issues. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan, for the very informative talk on CBDC. I'm Dr. John Yun from the Department of Computer Science. Today, I would like to share about some of the security and privacy challenge in CBDC. So as just introduced by Alan, security is one of the very basic requirements, as well as also the most important requirement for CBDC. Why is that? Of course, we know that if we do not offer security in the CBDC system, then it is very likely that there will be some hackers to steal money from you or from your account. So the CBDC ecosystem is very likely to be a high-value target once it is deployed. And therefore, the central bank should put suitable controls and process in place to make sure that there will be no large-scale attack from those hackers. So security is a primary attribute for CBDC. And if you are familiar with the security requirement for the cybersecurity systems, perhaps you know that confidentiality, integrity, and availability are three fundamental security requirements, which means that you need to keep some data secret for confidentiality. You need to ensure that the data cannot be modified easily for integrity. And for availability, it means that the data or the software should function all the time. Apart from that, we also need to ensure the operational security, including continuous testing, authentication safeguards, best practice, and periodic external audit for all the key software components as well as the hardware components of the system. There are a number of potential CBDC design using different technologies. They offer different levels of securities. So for example, for solution that relies on centralized system, they may provide a maximized integrity and also availability. But there may be a problem of a single point of failure. For a distributed system, they may face the problem of there are multiple points of attack. And for those solutions that is built on a dedicated device in a hardware or in your mobile phone, then they may have less issue in the system-wide risk, but they have problems at the expense of integrity. That means if your hardware device, dedicated device is lost, then you may lose your money. Perhaps one may design a hybrid solution to maximize the usability of system, provide the maximum level of security, but it will somehow also increase the risk because there are more attack surface, and also it will increase the cost for implementing those hybrid systems. So let's look into two of the most popular approach for building CBDC. The DLT, the distributed ledger technology, is usually considered to be more implemented in the back end, like the server side, while we have a hardware device, which is usually implemented in the client side. So let's look into the DLT technology. So a common belief is that for public DLT, it is not quite suitable for the risk profile for a CBDC system because the general public can also participate in joining as a node for those public DLT, and therefore it is not quite suitable for a CBDC design. So usually private or permission DLT is considered. And it also helps to provide redundancy because data are distributed in the DLT. And it also provides payment authenticity by design because digital signatures are appended to those DLT transactions. But designing with this kind of DLT system increase the operational complexity and it also increase the points of vulnerability. And about the client side. So it is possible to design some apps like as shown in this diagram to ask the users to use the CBDC in an app in a mobile phone. So this is perhaps one of the case in the test in the mainland China. And also there are some proposals by the Bank of Canada, the Central Bank of Canada. They also consider to use a hardware token for CBDC like our Octopus card, some kind of hardware token for CBDC design. So no matter what, this kind of hardware device may increase the integrity risk because your hardware device may be damaged or stolen. But on the other hand, this kind of dedicated single-purpose device to store value, they are more robust against network attack because data are stored inside your, for example, the hardware token. So it may be good in certain sense. So the security of the CBDC system actually depends on your actual designs and the actual technology used. Actually, security is more easy to understand by the general public, and we all know that it is important. But on the other hand, privacy is a more challenging task as compared to the security. Why is that? This is mainly because on the complexity of privacy. For example, these are some common questions that the central bank should consider when they design the CBDC. For example, should all transactions be routinely disclosed to the government or only some transactions? For example, if those transactions are over certain limit, certain threshold, then it will be disclosed. But other than that, they should be hidden or anonymous in certain sense. Should the law enforcement be able to determine how much money one holds, or they can just know the approximate amounts that they hold? When people make a payment using the CBDC in a shop, should the payer's identity be hidden from a merchant or not? Should the retail transaction details be shown to the player's MSB, the money service business? That means, should the bank know what kind of product that customer buy, or should they just know the amounts but nothing else? Should the users be able to transact outside the KYC regulation to some extent? Which means that if, for example, if the transaction amount is very small, then perhaps they don't need to go through the KYC process for those transactions. Actually, privacy is a very complicated situation. Actually, it goes beyond the binary choice of full anonymity and full disclosure. Here is a table that is summarized by the Bank of Canada about different levels of privacy provided by different payment solutions, ranging from credit card payment, debit card payment, DLT, Bitcoin, dedicated hardware devices, all the way to the physical cash. So you can see there are a number of different existing solutions as well as future possible solutions. And in this table, you can see there are a lot of different participating parties, like the government, the payer's MSB, payee MSB, the payee, the payment provider, and all other parties. And for each individual parties, they have different privacy level. As shown in this table, 3 is the most private, while 0 is no privacy at all. And we can further classify it according to holding, the type of money that you own. So it can, for holding, there are 2 further information: who is the identity of the owner and what is his balance. And for individual transactions, you can also classify them further into who is the identity of the payer, who is the identity of the payee, and the transaction amount. So you can see that in this table, you can see that the physical cash we use offer the highest level of privacy, like we can see freeze in most columns. While for credit card, perhaps it offers less because the bank knows a lot of information of your transactions. But for all other things like Bitcoin, it is something in between. So what do we want? What should a CBDC should achieve? There is a lot of room for discussion. Even if we can design or think about what is the requirement for privacy, still we need to find out what is the possible technology that help us to achieve that. In fact, there are many cryptographic solutions for achieving different levels of privacy. There are a lot of mature technologies like group signatures, secret sharing, zero knowledge proof, homomorphic encryption, multi-party computation, and defense of privacy. But the challenge is that most of this kind of cryptographic techniques are well known to the researchers or the academic world only. And for those practitioners, it may be difficult for them to understand. Therefore, it is important for the authority to work with the academic together to find out what is the most suitable combination to satisfy the requirement for privacy in CBDCs. And it is also usually recommended to include the privacy when the authority designed the CBDCs. And the central bank could engineer the CBDC system with a high level of privacy than most commercial products, like the digital payment system offered by the traditional bank. But of course, with a trade-off. Some of the combination of the privacy requirement may not even be feasible. or some will lead to a very high operational cost with a lot of risk as well. So it is quite challenging for the central bank to design such privacy CBDC systems. And finally, after this CBDC privacy is designed, the user's overall privacy will actually depend on several factors, including the user's own behavior, because if they are not quite concerned about their privacy or quite not careful enough, they will leak their privacy easily. And it is also affected by the privacy policy of other entities in the ecosystem as well. Another challenge for achieving privacy in CBDC system is to comply with existing regulations. And this is mainly because many existing regulations like the KYC or the AML, they require the disclosure of certain information. And usually there are some kind of requirement that you may need to disclose certain transaction details to avoid fraud transactions. If we really want to achieve a CBDC system with cash-like privacy, actually technically it is rather difficult because technically it might be immature. There is very limited actual deployment in the real world, and it is usually very difficult to comply with the KYC and AML regulations as well. But perhaps one of the suggestions is that maybe a designer should build a system with a hybrid level of privacy. For example, for those unregulated holding or transaction, for example, the transaction lower than certain threshold, maybe we should offer them with a maximum privacy setting. So we offer high level of privacy to them. But for those large amount transactions, perhaps we should offer some mechanism to allow the regulators to find out what is the details of those transactions if needed. Last but not least, apart from the design, we also need to build the trust from the general public as well, because no matter how good our system is, if the public does not trust it, then the public will not use it, and they will use something like the traditional cash instead. So we believe that public trust in the privacy design is quite important, and it can be achieved by having a third party to review the CBDC architecture as well as the operation. So we believe that trust in those CBDC system is quite important. So to conclude my short introduction about the security and privacy in CBDC, actually the CBDC ecosystem will be a high value target once it is deployed, and hence security is essential in this system. And privacy is especially a challenging task due to its complexity. There are so many different levels of privacy with respect to different parties, different payment systems, and different transaction or holding details. It is very difficult to achieve cash-like privacy, and we need to design what we really want. And hybrid solutions are possible to have a fine-grained control over security as well as privacy. So this summarizes my talk. Thank you.